South Africa is an amazing country, and once you're outside the major cities, an unreal place to drive. They've got wide open spaces, well-built highways, exciting back roads, great infrastructure and amenities, but also plenty of remote places. So here's a few tips to get you started driving in South Africa. Now obviously you're driving on the left, so if you've never done it before, there'll be a small adjustment period. But don't let this discourage you. South Africa is a great place to learn how to drive on the left, especially if you don't need to deal with any significant traffic for your first day or two after you pick up your vehicle. Just remember that when you approach an intersection, you need to look to your right and then to your left instead of the other way around. Maybe tell your passenger, if you have one, to double as your eyes and ears until you're comfortable. If you're trying to navigate or figure out something with the vehicle, it's easy to kind of default to your usual driving habits, so give your passenger a free pass to be critical of your driving, at the very least for the first day or two. I actually find having the navigation set helps you to visualize traffic maneuvers before you have to execute them, especially things that are opposite of what you're used to, such as going into right-hand turns or using a roundabout. Once you're outside of the cities, the driving can be as tame and familiar as in Europe or North America, or you could go find some back roads that really give you that feeling of adventure. In my experience, the standard of driving amongst other drivers is fairly good. People generally drive safely and in a predictable fashion. If you've watched any of my other videos, it's definitely a better standard of driving than, say, Montenegro or Uganda. I did get pulled over once by police at a checkpoint. They were very friendly to me and just simply asked for my license and then let me go. I offered to show them my international driver's permit, but they didn't seem interested in seeing it. In fact, I don't think I've ever had anybody actually require me to show it to them, but for how little it costs, I usually just carry one anyways to avoid the possibility of being fined for not having one. Now, despite the excellent driving conditions, especially when you're staying on the main roads, when there's road construction, it's not uncommon for them to use a stop-go control or a contraflow, where they kind of allow both lanes of traffic to use the single lane for a period of time and then switch the direction of the flow. So it never hurts to leave yourself some extra time, since we experienced delays up to 20 minutes waiting for our turn to use the single available lane. And sometimes we had to wait multiple times within an hour. Admittedly and intentionally, we never drove at night. I don't think there'd be much to be concerned about if you're on the main highways at night, but given the rate of violent crime in South Africa, we decided to ensure we never really needed to be traveling at night, except for on our last day on the way to the airport. We drove to Cape Town International Airport after dark, and just driving through some of the areas you have to drive through to get to the airport, it did occur to me just how awful it would be to have an accident and be trying to sort that out in the dark on a busy highway in an area I'm not comfortable in. So just keep it in mind that whenever possible, it's best not to be driving after dark. Now, if you're renting a vehicle, one thing that you should be aware of is that all users of the roads in South Africa, whether they are citizens or not, are granted what is typically referred to as third-party liability insurance by a state-funded insurance plan called the Road Accident Fund. So if you're trying to use the rental car insurance provided by your credit card, but you're worried that you don't have third-party liability coverage and the rental place doesn't seem to offer it, my understanding is that it's included by default with your rental. If you're renting an off-road capable vehicle or a camper from like a specialty rental company, they usually have pretty comprehensive insurance plans available, and they might even be included in the quoted price. When it came to using navigation, we found that Google Maps and Waze are widely used, and people seem to use Waze a lot to report police presence, red light cameras, speed traps, that sort of thing. And riding in multiple Ubers in Cape Town, we tend to see that drivers seem to be split between using Google Maps and Waze. On the subject of red light cameras, in Cape Town the amber lights seemed very quick to me. I tried to Google to see exactly what the time was relative to other cities, but I couldn't find any hard data. So maybe it was just in my head, but if you see red light cameras, don't play around with the yellow lights. It seems like you don't have a ton of time to stop from my point of view. On the security side of things, we never had any issues, but even Uber drivers we rode with would generally keep their windows rolled up in town, especially if there are people standing near red lights or intersections. If you're using your phone as navigation, just be aware of your surroundings and how visible it is and where it's mounted, especially if your window is open. There's no need to draw any unnecessary attention to yourself. It's also not uncommon for people to be selling things at stoplights or even in traffic jams in more rural areas or at the lineup for construction stop-go controls. In my experience, they were always friendly, but it's still a good idea to not have your valuables clearly visible through the windows as people walk by your car. So don't just throw your camera in the back seat thinking, oh, we're driving, it's not going to be a problem. Make sure all your stuff is tucked away. Now, if you're driving dirt roads or in national parks, just be sure to always stay on established trails. And if necessary, air down your tires or use low range. If at all possible, you want to avoid sliding or spinning your wheels. This just degrades the trail for future users and just does damage and makes the paths and the trails less passable. Even if your vehicle is capable of leaving the trail, it's against the rules pretty much anywhere you could find yourself driving. So always stay on the marked trails, regardless of what you want to see is off the trail. Just find a trail that can get you closer, or accept that you're not going to get as close as you'd like to.
So thanks for watching the video. If you have any further questions, please let me know in the comments. Also check out some of my other videos, and if you'd like to, subscribe to my channel. Thanks again.